Hello, Miss Madhu.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it'll be a pleasure. It's something I'm very deeply interested in. I'm sure it's going to be very educative for us.
Thank you so much.
Yes, of course. So it's a 6:05. And still people are coming. I think we'll better wait. Yeah. Join. Yeah.
We will wait. I plan to keep my presentation very crisp so that we have more time for interaction.
Yes.
That'd be nice.
We have a good number of registrations, so I'm sure people are, trying to join in.
Yes. Yeah. We'll wait for 3 minutes. And anyway, we are live. Yeah. Yes, in fact, people have sent us a few questions. Keshini will be reading that. Yeah. Yeah, we are live. Yeah.
So is Mrs. Gitanjali here? I've heard so much about her from.
She's only speaking at present when she said that we're recording,
Oh, okay.
As Gitanjali.
One second, let me just, otherwise.
This is her.
Okay. Hello.
Okay. Yeah, let me just switch on. I was just setting up the live. Yes, doctor.
This is Gitanjali.
Hi. Hi.
I have heard such a larger than life introduction of you from Keshini. So I was like, who is this person?
No, that's so kind of her. Sweet of her. Yes, nothing. I'm the secretary of Rotary Connect. I'm the charter secretary. So yes, thanks to Keshini to have reached you and got you on board to take this session.
I am really loving being here. Thanks to Shalini to have immediately thought of this when she just spoke to me. For some other context, we spoke after such a long time. It's always so good to, go back and interact with friends.
Yes.
And then there are some with whom you can, just immediately take off from where you had left and, you really don't feel that you haven't interacted for a long time. So Shalini is one of them.
Great.
We have, I think, Jayashree and me, we have a similar vibes, right?
Absolutely, yes. We are the Enthu cutlets.
Yeah, that's a good word.
I like the word Enthu cutlets.
Enthu cutlets. Whatever task we have at hand, like we'll jump and we'll do it.
Yeah,
One should be like that, yes.
Someone was telling me that you're new at Rotary, that's why you're so enthu. I said, no, I'm always enthu.
Yes, she is the most enthu cutlet in the club itself.
So I just found the right descriptive word.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
start with introduction.
I will. A short and sweet. I think we'll have to follow the protocol. Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Wonderful to see you all for joining today's COVID care speaker session. We have been having wonderful speaker sessions, like in this pandemic, which is the most needed one because we can't go out and at least we can enhance our knowledge about COVID. This is Gitanjali Dhar welcoming you all on behalf of Rotary Connect. As everyone knows, India today is struggling with the deadly second wave of COVID-19 and cases of a rare fungal infection called mucormycosis. I mean, it took a lot of time for me to actually learn how to spell it, which is being reported across the country, which is adding to the worries of our government and people. like it's also, as everyone knows, it's also known as black fungus, which is a fungal infection recently being found in COVID-19 patients with compromised immunity, is what we have read. Deconstructing black, the rising incidence of black fungus and mortality related to it have paved way for a lot of misconception and misunderstanding about it. So much so that recently, which is I myself have experienced people doing. I mean, people have started alienating the families who have been diagnosed with black fungus, assuming that it is a contagious disease. And add to it messages from WhatsApp University, add more confusion to whatever little we know of the black fungus. So who else but a well-known doctor like Jayashree Bhatt can help us learn, burst all such myths and help us understand the disease for us to cope up with. I thank our Rotary Connect member, Dr. Keshini Sagar, for reaching out to Dr. Jayashree to take this important session. And thank you, Doctor, for joining us in spite of your busy schedule. So I now request Dr. Keshini to introduce Dr. Jayashree and take the session forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Geetanjali. Welcome, Dr. Jayashree, and welcome everyone else who has joined us today evening. There's so much to tell about Dr. Jayashree, and it's wonderful to see all that she does for the people around her. I'll try to sum it up, in the best way I can, even though words would not suffice. But Dr. Jayashree is a comprehensive ophthalmologist with over a decade experience in managing different eye diseases and even diabetic eye diseases, and is also a cataract surgeon. Dr. Jayashree is also the proprietor of identity clinics that are present in JP Nagar, that's in Bangalore. And she manages the ophthalmology services even at HCG, or hospital, you know how great and well-established hospital that is for cancer treatments. And along with that, Dr. Jayashree is also certified in face aesthetics and cosmetology. Another certification in artificial intelligence. Wow, that's so interesting, Dr. Jayashree. When I read that about you, I was like, that's, you're such an interesting personality. So we're so glad that, you could be with us, so much to share, that you would have for us to actually listen to. And also you have done a certification in machine learning as well. And in Dr. Jayashree's non-clinical avatar, she's actually a medical advisor for health IT companies. And she guides them to build tech solutions to enhance healthcare capabilities. So thank you so much, Dr. Jayashree, for taking our time for today. And we're all so eager to listen to you and have so many questions as well. So please, the stage is handed over to you now.
Thank you, Keshini, and thank you, Geetanjali, for the lovely introduction and for this opportunity. So my screen sharing is disabled. Is it possible to help me with screen sharing so that
you are the co-host. You are the co-host. You can share.
Yes, I think now I can. So
yes,
are you all able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
So my topic is titled as Black Fungus, What You Need to Know. So earlier I called it as what everyone needs to know, and my son said that is grammatically not correct. So, children of these days, they are politically, grammatically, everything correct. You have to listen to them. So I changed the title accordingly. He said, okay, Black Fungus, what you need to know. So what each one of us needs to know, right? So first thing is I want us all to embrace the idea that fungi are with us, around us, in our environment. Basically, all these years I've been doing a lot of cataracts. So let me just give an example. So every time there is a cataract, so the patient thinks that, oh, cataract band bitide. That means the cataract has come into the eye. So there's nothing foreign coming into the eye, but it is our own God-given lens which has got opacified and become cataractous. It has become opaque. So same way, we cannot look at fungi as if they have landed from Mars or something. They are all around us. And we've been dealing with them, we've been seeing them, and they are everywhere, in soil, in fishes, in water, in plants, debris, everywhere. And just like how we have accepted bacteria, like the good bacteria, the bad bacteria. So same way, fungi are also needed for ecological balance. They are needed for, decomposition. They are needed. We use the yeast, the good old yeast in our, recipes. And and also some medicines are made from fungi. So now let us just focus on the disease-causing fungi. We know of all the common fungal diseases, the ringworm, the nail infections, and oral and vaginal thrush or candidiasis that we call. And some fungi are specific to some regions, like there is histoplasmosis, which is associated with bird droppings, and there is blastomycosis, which is more in the US. And there are some fungi which particularly affect the immunocompromised. And our mucormycosis is one such category. The mucormycosis, aspergillosis, and certain class of candidial fungi, they affect the immunocompromised people. So we are basically focusing on that part today. And particularly in that, the mucormycosis is extremely rare. So now the entire world is kind of opening up their eyes to, oh my God, what happened? Where is this? And where is this coming from? So less than 2% of people every year in San Francisco, but this I got only from the US, statistics. But any which ways, in India, it is much, much higher, maybe owing to the farming or more of spores in our environment. So that is the hypothesis we have. And then coming to the mucormycosis and whether it is black or white, reminds me of the Michael Jackson song, the black or white. Basically, it is not a black fungus, it is very much a white fungus. So when the mucor is isolated from the nasal crust and it is given to the laboratory, and it grows like rapidly, it grows so fast. Within the next day, the entire test tube is filled with something like a Santa's, beard. So it really goes very fast and it looks white. So then why do we call it as the black fungus? Because what it does to the tissue after it goes and it invades the tissue and it kind of, eats up the tissue becomes black. The affected tissue becomes black. So that is why this is for us to understand that, it is actually a white looking fungus, but the affected tissue becomes black, and that is why we end up calling it as the black fungus infection. So the black fungus, or now let us call it more scientifically, the mucormycosis infection, it is caused by a group of molds. They belong to the Mucormycetes group of the scientific order of Mucorales. So these fungi are very much part of our environment. Like I said, they are there in organic matter, they are there in leaves, piles, compost piles, they are there in animals, they are there in all the dusty environment. So for example, now you and me, if we take a long breath, I'm sure we would have inhaled some spores. So why I'm like trying to stress on this point is that now everyone's got so scared and so paranoid. Will I put 2 masks? Will I wear, top to toe everything? And is it possible for me to see that not even a single spore of, mucor is there in me? So it's just not possible. As you and me speak, we might still have some spores, but whether it becomes aggravated or it becomes so strong to cause a disease in us, so that is the next thing, right? So we keep coming in contact with these fungal spores, and the most common of mucors are the Rhizopus and the mucor species of mucormycosis. So focusing very specifically on the COVID-associated mucormycosis. So as I mentioned before, immunocompromised people who have very low WBC counts, that the white blood cells are the ones which help us fight infection in the body. So those people who have very low white blood cell counts, those people who are like HIV and hepatitis B, those who have been on very long immunosuppressive treatment for cancer, all these people have been getting affected by black fungus all these years. There are instances, but now the issue in front of us is the mucormycosis, which comes along with COVID. So this we call it as the CAM, the COVID-associated mucormycosis. And so much of this information which I gave you now, I'm sure you will find it on the internet, and several of it even I have picked from the internet. But henceforth, whatever I'm going to share with you is something which has come from my own experience of seeing black fungus cases over the last 1.5 months. So all the cases that I have seen so far, though there are claims that people who have just not got COVID have also been affected by this fungus in the last few months, more than 60 cases I must have handled so far, and each and every person has had COVID. This is what my Mucor War Room experience says. So each and every person has had COVID. There's a definite history of COVID. Mostly it is in the after 2 weeks of symptoms of COVID that has started, after 2 weeks in a month's time. So between two weeks to a month's time. And it has become so rampant now that the government has declared it as definitely an epidemic in a pandemic situation. And the last I knew, about 10,000 odd cases have been reported pan-India. So what are the risk factors? Does every person who gets COVID having a risk factor for this? Again, going by the statistics that I have seen in my practice, the patients who are known diabetics or not known diabetics at all, but who have had high sugar status during COVID. Now, I'm sure several of you heard that people who have not at all been diabetic in the past during COVID, and this is some theory which is again, being studied, that COVID virus has got an effect on our pancreas, and that is how it affects the production of insulin and creates a diabetes-like state in the person's body. So even those who have been having normal sugars throughout their life tend to have very high sugars when they're having COVID. So this is one high risk factor for developing a fungal infection. Other than that, use of steroids. Definitely there is a correlation. When I say use of steroids, again, now everyone's getting scared. Oh my God, I won't take steroids. Steroids are life-saving. My dear friends, steroids are life-saving. It is only that, if it is just used without logic, if it is used injudiciously, prolonged period and excessive use of steroids is what causes the trouble. Otherwise, steroids are definitely something which has and continues to save life in COVID patients. What I have seen is like even the patients coming from the smaller towns, the tier 2, tier 3, the doctors have just like pumped steroids right from day one. What we say generally is in a viral infection, the first 6 days is something when the viral load is very high, and that is when mostly antivirals will do the magic, and only later on when the inflammation starts developing, when the viral load comes down, but when the cytokine storm or the inflammation is when that starts rising, that is when steroids are needed, and not in the first few days. So bearing all this in mind, if administered very properly, then definitely steroids are not the culprit. Then high flow oxygen. So high flow oxygen again creates an environment which is good for the fungus to thrive. High ferritin levels. This is again been observed in COVID that, I'm sure several of you know that the ferritin level goes high during the time that someone has COVID, and the mucor needs iron to bind, for its growth and for its proliferation. So high ferritin is a risk factor. And of course, low immunity. Again, low immunity because of the virus, low immunity because of additional immunosuppressive medicines like the tocilizumab, all go together. So the one factor, all these factors may not be there in everybody, right? One very, very strong factor which I've always seen plugged with the situation of mucor is the high sugar. Sometimes even steroids have not been used. Sometimes hospital admission has not been done. Not all people have received oxygen, but high sugars are something which I have definitely found that there is a correlation. So how does this fungus get into the body? Like I said, it comes through, mostly the most common thing is it comes through inhalation of the spores. And suppose it colonizes in the sinus, which is like the most common thing, then from the sinuses, it spreads to the eye and then to the brain. So that is when we call it as the rhino-orbito-cerebral mucormycosis, in short, ROCM. Okay. Suppose it colonizes in the lungs, then we call it as a pulmonary mucormycosis. Suppose it comes through from the cut wounds on the body and gets into the skin through the cut wounds, then it is a cutaneous mucormycosis. And sometimes it just gets into the blood in a very, very like weak person, immunocompromised person, then it is a disseminated one. Suppose it goes into the GI tract and causes disease there, then it is a gastrointestinal. But the main chunk of the disease, what we are handling currently is the rhino-orbitocerebral mucormycosis. And I'd like to stress, underline, repeat this, that it doesn't transmit. Sorry about the spelling mistake there. It doesn't transmit from person to person. So it is something very inherent to that person's immunity. It is inherent to that person's body, and someone who's looking after a person, it's unlike COVID. This is not something which would go from person to person. So here are some of the early symptoms of how to recognize when there is a black fungus infection. And this is very, very important for all of you to know, and even probably tell others around you, because just like any other disease, detecting early is one of the very, very important, crucial points for a good outcome, for a very good outcome. Okay. So when we detect early, sometimes it can just be restricted to the nose. So we call it as a very first stage. Or later on, it's the eye, and later on, it's the brain that gets involved. So early detection is extremely crucial, and one has to watch out for these kind of signs in a person who is recovering or has just recovered from COVID. In the eye, it could be watering, swelling, mild blurring vision. It could be a lid swelling, just the lid getting swollen, or it could be just the lid getting drooped. Okay. Or sometimes there could be nothing but just a blackish discoloration of the side that is getting affected. So on that side of the face, there can be, vague face pain, swelling in the face, and also lack of sensation. So I have seen patients where everything looks very symmetric and very nice, but there is a difference in the sensation on the two sides of the face. So this is something to watch out for. And in the nose, stuffiness of the nose, pain in the nose, or a running nose. These are some of the signs. And there could be even dental signs, like the person could have a vague pulling kind of dental ache, or could feel that the teeth are loosening. So these are the things. So other symptoms are very vague based on where else it could have gone, like the GI, the abdomen, or the lungs, breathlessness. So if it's a brain, then there is confusion, dizziness, headache, fever, etc. Okay. Late symptoms. I really pray nobody waits till they come to this point of having symptoms late and reaching medical facility. So late symptoms, there is like double vision. There is very severe loss of vision, even blindness, because and there is also loss of movement. The muscles of the eye become paralyzed. So there is inability to move the eye. So the person cannot move it in coordination and sees double when they move the eye. And severe swelling and even eye closure. So this is one case which was like moderate to severe. The nose, mouth, and the face can get extremely necrotic, and it can just get rotten. I have deliberately avoided putting some, very harsh pictures into the presentation, because if you just go on the internet, I'm sure you will get a lot of that. And I somehow felt that it is not for a non-medical audience, and I didn't want to really spoil your Friday evening by showing you such gory pictures. So I've avoided. How do we go about managing the rhino-orbital mucormycosis? Detailed history taking and clinical examination is key. And it could be an ENT doctor or an ophthalmologist like me, wherein, we take a very detailed history of COVID and what could have happened during COVID. And then we also do a clinical examination of the eye and also the nose and the sinuses. Imaging, again, the MRI imaging, especially the contrast MRI imaging, is brilliant in diagnosing. So this is one case wherein the imaging really helps in diagnosis, and it also helps in later on prognosticating, like whether they're doing well with treatment, whether it is recurring. So in fact, what we see outside is like much later. What the scan can pick is like at least 1 week early, it can pick few things. So whenever in doubt, we are not hesitating, and then we're getting the scans done, and they're giving very good clue. Of course, the microbiological study wherein we take the crust and the tissue and then send it to the labs, and we find the very classy picture of the mucor which is growing. So what is the treatment? Treatment is very aggressive, and treatment is very prolonged. It is also expensive. Okay. So it includes surgical treatment as well as medical treatment. So surgical treatment, whatever is involved. So it is like a cancer treatment only. And that is why probably it made sense for us to deal with these cases in a cancer hospital. How something is like cancerous and something which is spreading like wildfire has to be actually removed and, taken off the system. Same way here, surgical treatment, the rhinus, the sinus and the nasal cavity, whatever is tissue is involved, it is all just removed. And when I say that, the eye also comes into the picture. So in every case where there is vision in the eye, and in several cases where there is no vision also, we have tried to retain the eye. But sometimes in the interest of saving the life of the person, the eye might have to be sacrificed. And this is a very, very sensitive and a very painful point in a black fungus infection and a black fungus treatment. So in fact, and there is not much time to prepare the person mentally also. There's not much time to tell them this is going to happen, because the call has to be taken quickly. In 24 hours, we see that they can go to the next stage. So this is something which has to be done. And this is one area where, one has to be very strong-willed and take a decision in favor of the patient's life. And I've had to do that in this season. So medical treatment, and I'm sure like mucormycosis, even this drug like remdesivir has become a very popular name now, amphotericin. This is the mainstay of treatment. Amphotericin, prolonged treatment is needed by an intravenous route. Every patient might require 5 to 6 vials of this drug, and this drug really went out of shortage because no one had anticipated that it will be needed in such high quantities. And even now, the chaos that is running, there is drug being made available, and cases are coming down. But at one point of time, it was ultimately chaotic to obtain this drug. There are other drugs also, which are posaconazole, isavuconazole, but nothing which is as effective as amphotericin B. Now, with all this having said, I'm sure you all have this big question in your mind: how can one prevent the black fungus infection? So first and foremost, since it's so much associated with COVID, if you can avoid COVID, best for you. Okay, stay home, stay indoors, use all the physical distancing methods, the hygiene, the sanitization. And my dear friends, pray, get vaccinated. Because again, here I see there is still some people who are a little skeptical and who are a little hesitant to take the vaccine. Some vaccination is better than no vaccine, and whatever you get, Covishield, Covaxin, the Sputnik, whichever you get, it's not a question of which is the best vaccine and waiting for the one which is the best, but what is available. Just go ahead and take it. Again, from the stats that I have gathered of the patients who have presented to my clinic in the last 1.5 months, all these people, most of them were not vaccinated. Most people were not vaccinated because it is automatic. Someone who is vaccinated will not get COVID, or even if he gets COVID, the disease is quite mild. So the need for steroids is low, the need for oxygen, and etc. is low, and automatically the chances of getting a black fungus infection is also equally, the proportionate rate comes down. So then definitely vaccine is something which everybody, you have to, I'm sure Rotary is also taking some measures to, get Rotarians vaccinated. I'm sure you all are doing, some steps in that regard. So please get vaccinated. And through COVID, before, through, or after COVID, be very careful with blood sugars that have to be very carefully monitored and taken care of. Avoid over and prolonged steroid use. Don't get paranoid, don't get panicky when someone says that you need a steroid. discuss with the doctor and take a second opinion, a third opinion, doesn't matter, and go with what is right. Of course, mask hygiene is one thing which people are thinking whether this is something which has added to the black fungus burden. Because mask, again, if you keep breathing into the mask and it becomes very humid, and humid environment is something that which encourages the fungus proliferation. So mask hygiene is something that you have to look into. Dry, clean mask, and also good to cover hands and wear shoes. Avoid dusty and construction areas, especially those who are a little sensitive, diabetics, senior citizens. Just avoid all that. But not that this is seen only in senior citizens. We have seen the disease in very, very young people also, and high sugars is one cause in even such young people. Okay, so this was my experience. I must have seen more than 60 patients with black fungus infection in the last 1 month. Every eye saved has been a victory, and I just want to count the eyes that we saved. And unfortunately, my dear friends, we had to remove 4 eyes, and I wish that number was not 4, but it was 0. But there is no war without casualties, and you know that. And it was the interest of saving the lives of these people. And every life saved is a blessing. We did take up some very high risk cases also, but and in the process, we also lost 3 patients in the struggle. We got covered by several media, and this is one of the So why I played that is for us to, kind of ponder over the point that it's just not the senior citizens, it is even very young people who are bread earners for the family, they can get affected. And unlike COVID, where there is, either the person lives or the person dies, it's aar ya par. But in black fungus, there are several people who are surviving, but they come out with severely mutilated body organs. Sometimes eye is removed, sometimes jaw is removed, the entire interior of the nose is removed. And all these people have been fitted with prostheses. They have to learn to live without the normal airway. They have to learn to live without the normal sensation of taste or smell, or they forego so many things later. They have to be taught to speak again. So this rehabilitation is definitely a very, very challenging situation for all the survivors of black fungus. Of course, even the financial burden is very high, because they have already drained out most of their resources for COVID treatment. And after that, this comes as the next financial burden. And there is also a lot of psychological trauma if one's eye is removed, and one's complete face is disfigured. So and there are so many young patients with whom this is happening, and of course the shortage of drugs. So these are all the challenges that we faced, and I'm really open to discussions as to how a huge organization like Rotary can help us, the medical fraternity, in helping out people deal with all this, because it's not end of story. We have to be like, it's not like I say, okay, I've finished and you are done and then you can go. We have to be with these patients for a very long period of time. It is like they are the war victims of some sort of a biological scene, and we have to be with them for a very long period of time. This is one gentleman who came with really swollen eyes, and what I would like you all to appreciate is that he's got a smile on his face now, because he's able to see and his eyes are moving well. So it is actually one of the most challenging, but one of the things which has given so much of job satisfaction for a doctor like me. And I'm really thankful to the Almighty that I got an opportunity to be of care for these people. And this is just not a solo job. To handle a crisis like this, it is a multidisciplinary approach, and without an institution like HCG, we wouldn't be able to do it. It cannot be done in a small setup. The kind of infrastructure, the expertise, the backup that is needed to manage a situation like black fungus is something very parallel, which is needed to manage very intricate head and neck and trauma and oncosurgery. So a setup like HCG was so much needed at this point of time, and we are happy we could do this work there. And this is the wonderful team which came together to do it. Nothing would be possible without them. Dr. Gaurav Medikeri is the chief architect of this black fungus clinic in HCG. He started the program, actually, the hotline and all that. And he's a head and neck and he's a skull-based surgeon, ENT. And the radiologist, and I keep bugging him every day and go see the images and say, okay, what to be done for this patient. And he's been so very patient to guide. Dr. Sunil, who is the intensivist, and several nurses and paramedics, and the list is endless. So we all could, contribute to this, and I'm really grateful to the whole team for that. And in case someone has more queries on black fungus, or if they want to refer a case, or they want a second opinion, then these are the numbers, and these are the places to reach out to me and the team. And there is also we have a tie-up with an app called as CureBook app, and as a CSR initiative, even they have provided the first online consultation regarding black fungus or COVID, related to COVID, free at this point of time, I think for this month. And I'd like to end with a Charlie Chaplin quote: "We think too much and we feel too little, but more than machinery, we need humanity, and more than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness." And I think more than intelligence, I think this kindness and this gentleness was what helped us to take care of all these patients throughout this time. And this is Mr. Lakshmi Narayan, who is with me. I've poked him 3 or 4 times in the eye. I've put so many medicines into his eye. He has lost a part of his jaw. He's been operated, and he is so full of life. He's such a charming person and so full of life. Every time every doctor meets him, he just shows both hands up, like, I'm there and I'm thriving, I'm doing well. And he successfully conquered the black fungus. He's gone back to his native town. He has a sari shop over there, and he has told he'll bring his saris for all of us. Thank you so much for your patient hearing.
That was wonderful, doctor. Just can't thank enough. And it's such a wonderful work you're doing, you and your team is doing. As you mentioned, like gentleness and kindness is what we all look forward in these times. So I request Dr. Keshini to, have the question answer sessions begin, please.
Thank you, Dr. Jayashree. I think it was very touching to really hear the way you have, and a lot of doctors together have, come together to actually help so many people in need. It's wonderful, and I think it just sparks that kindness in all of us also, and reignites the rigor with which we should be helping people out there. So thank you for that. I would open up the floor now for any Q&A. Dr. Jayashree said she'd love to answer questions. She says she likes to do that more than explaining also. So anybody? Yes, Dr. Arnhem Mathur, yes.
Yes, thank you so much. In the absence of amphotericin B, can we use Candid field lotion locally? Candid
Could you
B.
please, I had a call which I had to take. Could you please repeat that question for me?
In the absence of amphotericin B, can we use the medications for the Candida albicans like Candid B lotion? And
No. It has been proven. In fact, sometimes it can aggravate also some of the voriconazole, etc. There are some medicines which are used for candidiasis, which are definitely not having any role in treating the black fungus. In mucormycosis, there is no role. We have seen good results with amphotericin B. We have also seen variable results with posaconazole. We have seen some, again, okay-ish kind of results with azavuconazole, which is also available as tablets as well as IV. But nothing as which is as potent as the amphotericin B. And the outcome is it is several factors are important for the outcome. It is not just how much the person can deal with the black fungus, how much can the person can deal with the drug also, because the amphotericin B is very strong. So if someone can hold on to all the parameters while he is being administered the drug, then he would definitely thrive well.
Sorry, have you ever seen Candida getting into the lungs apart from the black fungus, mucormycosis?
No, sir. I have not personally got any experience in this. So, no, I have not seen, and I'm not a specialist in that area also. So maybe there would be other doctors who are particularly dealing with the pulmonary kind of fungal infections who would do more justice to this question of yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, people can unmute themselves and they can ask questions.
Hi, Dr. Jayashree, can I ask a question? So I just, this situation is becoming very scary. Somebody gets cured of COVID, but doesn't feel cured completely because something else can happen. One is the black fungus, and there is something we have heard is white fungus, and there's something which we heard is yellow fungus. So can you just clear what is it how is it all different and why they're different types of fungus?
See, basically, this yellow fungus thing is something, which is floating these days. The white fungus is again the candidiasis, the thrush only, which has it's a different variant of that, which is seen in a hospital setting where people have been on ICUs and, on the ventilator and tubings. So these are all different kind of fungi which affect the people who are immunocompromised and who are in a hospital or a setting. So ultimately, they're the three of them which I mentioned. The aspergillosis, again, we are seeing aspergillosis also. Aspergillosis, the mucor, and the candida.
So is it only for COVID patient it is going to be there? It can happen to any other?
It has been happening. It has been happening. It has been there even in first wave also through, say there are people who have seen, but maybe this time, that is again the speculation. This time, is it because the second wave was so big that proportionately the number of fungal infections are also big? Because even in the first wave, there have been black fungus infections. We didn't make it was not this bad though. The second wave has been big and proportionately number of fungal cases have been big. The black fungus is big. But again, in patients who are being treated for cancer, in patients who are immunocompromised, otherwise, chronic steroid therapy or immunosuppressant therapy, they have been getting fungus. This has been there, but a normal guy, a fit and healthy young person getting is quite unheard of. And that is what we are seeing now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Yes, doctor, I wanted to ask, what is the duration it takes for the disease to result in blindness in case of it not detected in time?
I also said in my talk, this is something which it advances very, very rapidly, extremely rapidly. So in a matter of like 24 hours, things can change. So it doesn't give much time. That is the, yeah. So on a war footing, we have had to deal with this. I have seen a patient who came with something as simple as what we would think otherwise as a Madras eye. Okay, what we simply call it a conjunctivitis, a Madras eye. This young patient did not have anything else. He just had redness. He had watering in that eye. The only thing which got me to suspect was because he said one side he is not able to feel properly. Because the mucor, the fungus, it affects the blood vessels, it affects the tissues, it affects even the nerves. So the neurologically, he was not able to feel sensation. And that was the, that what clinched the diagnosis. Immediately got his, imaging done that had some sinus features. Again, not classically a black fungus, but something close to that. He was taken up the next morning for cleaning up the sinuses, etc. The previous day, he had about 60% vision. The next day, he had 0. Just in a matter of 8 to 10 hours. And this is one person who I will always remember, but without knowing exactly what is going on. And the root is the nose and the sinuses. So without treating there, there's nothing, and no drops works, nothing works.
Okay. I like to welcome Rashmi Ansali. She's the chair for women for Rotary in India, for our district. Welcome, Rashmi. Rashmi had specifically sent me a mail asking for some questions in case she was not able to come. Now that she is here, I would request her to ask the question.
Yeah, thank you, Gitanjali, for the warm welcome. And sorry for joining late. I was in another call. So now, is the session over?
Yes, we are. I won't say it's over. We are learning.
Okay,
Still more,
okay,
yeah.
fine. Dr. Jayashree, thank you on the onset. It's a wonderful subject to get on because there's so many questions which are coming up regularly. I just had a small doubt, now we are wearing double mask. And most of us, when we go out, we actually sweat and perspire, and there's a lot of moisture that gets into that. So, is that harmful? Because that is going to again get into this candid formation and all that. And also sometimes even our nostrils are prone for fungal infection. So how would you say that? And because they also at one time use masks are really not biodegradable, and they're a garbage issue again, or people are misusing those masks, are reusing without washing. So it was very much advised that we use the cotton mask, 3-ply one, and now they say use an N95 mask, which you can wear 5-6 times, and then later you can discard it. But just tell me, what are we supposed to do in such circumstances when we are asked to wear 2 masks, and also protection, and also the hazards of wearing masks? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Rashmi. In fact, I did mention a little bit about this in my presentation, that wearing unhygienic masks is one thing which is being studied as one of the factors which is contributing to the black fungus. Even otherwise, it is not very hygienic, and the purpose of the mask, the filtration is itself is defeated if the mask becomes wet. So it has to be a dry, clean mask. If it is wet, then it is not sterile anymore. If you so then an N95 mask, and inside that either a surgical mask or a cloth mask, thin cloth mask, that will add to one more layer. And then if there is a wetness because of our breath, and that is absorbed most of it because of the second mask which is inside. So even otherwise, even it's a single N95, more than 4 hours, that same mask we don't use, because humid environment is something which is definitely a favorable thing for fungus to grow, one. And second is, again, it defies the purpose of wearing a mask if it is a wet mask. So that I hope that answers your question partly. And second thing, what are the long-term implications of wearing a mask like this? that again, we have to catch hold of pulmonologists, and they must be doing some studies as to say what are the hazards of wearing mask whole day. It is not really advisable to keep breathing your same the carbon dioxide which you throw out. It's not really healthy to keep breathing in. Some of us are not really lucky. From morning to evening we are wearing masks in our hospitals.
True.
Of course, we have gotten habituated to it. We are able to go up the stairs with mask, and we are able to manage with it. But long-term implications, like you say, definitely that's the question mark, and we have to do some long-term studies to see what are the implications on our lungs. Yeah.
Thank you, doctor. That was very convincing, and actually we are adapting and being flexible to many things without understanding, or I mean later on trying to adapt it, and I hope not many
Yes,
more.
we are learning everything day by day. I'm
Yes.
sure Suresh Tota would be here in the meeting if he is there. He can throw light on biodegradable masks, and he's doing something.
Okay,
regarding
that's
that.
nice. Thank you again. Thank you, Gitanjali.
Doctor?
Thank you, Rashmi.
I see a question. Is it diabetics only? So that is one clear factor which, at least in my practice, I'm yet to see a non-diabetic who has got, even if they have been non-diabetics throughout, during the COVID attack, definitely their sugars have soared up high, and such are the people who have contracted the black fungus. Some of them, the sugars are reaching baseline sometime after the disease, and some of them continue to be diabetic even beyond recovery from COVID. So definitely diabetes is one thing which can be closely linked. It is linked every time I have seen a black fungus case.
Yeah, Dr. Jayashree, good evening, Mahesh here.
Dr. Humidification also creates
Yeah, humidification
Mahesh, you can
also,
go for.
Yeah, humidification also is one pro
Doctor?
factor. That's why they're saying, like, over steaming is also one of the things which could have gotten this. Balance is the key. We must not do anything, too much of anything. So
Doctor,
is
I
it
have a
possible
question.
I'm just reading out a question from the chat box. Is it possible to contact fungus through usage of non-distilled water in oxygenators? See, we have tried to elicit history from our patients, whether they used oxygenators in the hospital, whether they used ventilators, whether they had an oxygen therapy, etc. But we have had patients, some of them who have not been on any oxygenator, some of them who have not been on any, but diabetes is one strong leak factor. So this again, yes, no, question mark.
Doctor, I have a
Jayashree.
question. Doctor?
Yes, please.
See, some of the COVID patients are diabetic patients, right?
Yeah.
But still, some steroids are given to them as a treatment for the COVID. Is it a true fact or this thing?
Yes, steroid. There is nothing to say that steroids shouldn't be given to diabetics. Like this question is,
I've been
there is
told
no,
that
there is no blanket rule like that. That universally no steroid should be given to diabetes. There is nothing like that. Steroids can definitely be used and must be used judiciously. That time the person's sugar should be monitored and kept at lower levels by either stepping up the medicine, stepping up the insulin, because steroids can also add to the sugars and make them go higher. So diabetes has to be managed accordingly. The sugars have to be titrated by managing the medicines accordingly. But if steroid has to be given, it has to be given.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Jayashree, good evening. I have two questions. The first one is, while taking steam at home, whether we have to use RO water or distilled water, or directly can we use water from BWSSB water?
See, regular water is more than sufficient. Once the water becomes steam, then automatically, it is gone to that temperature wherein all the microbes are killed. And in a person who has a good immunity, you really don't have to take all that additional care to overdo things. Like I'm saying, just do what you're doing. There's no need of over washing utensils or overly doing things. It's not really of any proven benefit.
The second question is, see, the first wave during last year, it was badly impacted to the senior citizens, and there were hardly any black fungus cases. And second wave, it is now affecting more for youngsters. Okay, and there is a huge black fungus cases are now coming up. And third wave, it is told for kids are going to affect more. And that black fungus is going to affect even kids also.
The first wave, there were black fungus cases, but they were not as many reported as in the second wave. Okay. Now, third wave, that is the theory which is being proposed, that it is going to mainly affect the children. And from whatever we have gathered information and studies so far, black fungus is not just exclusive to adults. There are youngsters who are getting affected. There are children who are also getting affected. So I really dread and hope this hypothesis and hope this, whatever is being proposed doesn't really come true. All that we can do for now is, since there is no vaccine also which is developed for children, just keep them safe and give them good nutritious food and maintain their hygiene and nutrition levels, and hence maintain their good immunity levels. That is all that can be done for the children right now. There are cases of black fungus which have been reported in children also already.
Doctor, is there any early marker or any diagnostic tool which can help assist the physician or doctors like you to diagnose this quite early before it takes a very dangerous shape?
You're talking about COVID, or you're talking about black fungus?
No, COVID is known. I'm talking about the black fungus.
Black fungus, one of the institutions in Bangalore has come up with some molecular tests. I am yet to, understand more about how it works. And one other report, what we have got is there is a new RT-PCR test which can also detect black fungus as rapidly as it can detect COVID. So this is something which I need to, understand and study better. And I'm sure, like, if it is the fact, then I'm sure it is going to come out in the media soon. But then please do not trust anything and everything that goes around in media. There are some very authentic websites, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, the CDC, and some websites are there. Please go to the authentic websites and only gather information from there, and don't just trust and go to authorized people. Don't just trust everything that goes around in the WhatsApp University. I'd like to take leave from the session now, if we are all done with the questions, because I have another call.
Thanks again, Dr. Jayashree. I request Keshini to extend a vote of thanks. And thanks again, Jayashree. Probably we'll be in touch in future.
Definitely will keep in touch. It was very refreshing to meet all Rotarians and exchange some thoughts. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and look forward to keeping in touch. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Jayashree. Thank you so much. Such an
Thanks, Dr. Jayashree, for coming.
Thank you.
I think the Q&A has been very helpful for all of us. So thank you so much for your time as well.
Thank you. All of you take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks to everybody who joined us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes,